All right, get this. Today we're diving into the story of 90 Rich. Just the name sounds like someone who struck it big in those Wild West early internet days, you know?
It does, doesn't it? It has a certain ring to it. And that's kind of the beauty of this deep dive, right? We're piecing together a digital mystery using, forum posts and like this faded YouTube blip to understand who 90 Rich was and what their story tells us about how online life has, transformed, really.
See, for some folks out there, when they hear that 90 Rich was big on RuneScape back in the late 2000s, well, that might as well be ancient history to them. So imagine this, okay? A massive online world, knights, wizards, the whole deal. But it's not just fantasy, because 90 Rich was actually racking up real-world value inside this game.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? They were a master at building up these high-value RuneScape accounts and then selling them. And back then, this was a sign of the times, a real testament to how these online worlds were already creating their own economies, ones that honestly mirrored the real world in surprisingly complex ways.
Hold on. So they were basically, what, digital entrepreneurs before being a digital nomad was even a thing?
Exactly. Way, way ahead of the curve. I mean, think about how much that RuneScape savvy would be worth in today's world, right? NFTs,
Yep.
digital asset trading. Imagine them with an NFT collection back then. It was essentially like they were beta testing the future.
It's like they looked at this spreadsheet of like magic swords and were like, yep, those will buy me some sweet freedom behind the wheel.
Right.
Talk about turning fantasy loot into real world, I don't know, freedom.
It's true. And it really makes you think back then, right? Virtual assets, they were just starting to be recognized as something, with actual value. Today, forget it. We're talking
Right.
entire marketplaces for in-game items, virtual real estate. I mean, it's insane. But 90 Rich, I mean, they were onto something, even if it, wasn't the metaverse as we know it.
Right. Like they hopped in a time machine, used their future earnings to, get their driver's license. What I wouldn't give to see the look on that driving instructor's face when they explained how they paid for those lessons.
Yeah.
But hey, at least they can drive, right?
Yeah.
That's a skill that translates a bit better than, I don't know, slaying dragons.
Yeah.
Though speaking of skills, turns out our 90 Rich had a moment in the YouTube spotlight too, didn't they?
They did. And this is where their story, it starts to get really interesting because it really paints a picture of just how much the online landscape has actually changed, even in a relatively short amount of time.
Okay, so spill the tea.
Yeah.
What kind of content did this RuneScape tycoon turned driving enthusiast create?
Well, we don't have all the details, unfortunately, but we know they dipped their toes into, content creation. They even had a viral hit at one point. But then silence, like they got a taste of internet fame and thought, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, maybe they saw what was coming, right? Like that meme
Yeah.
with the dog sipping coffee while everything's on fire. This is fine.
Perhaps. But what I think is really fascinating here is the context. So back then, YouTube was a completely different world. Fewer megastars, less pressure to be, perfect.
Yeah.
It was more about finding your tribe and sharing what you loved.
Right. It was less about sponsored content and algorithms and all that, and more about like showing your friends a funny video in the schoolyard,
Yeah.
just on a, slightly bigger screen.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the coveted verification badge. Back then, it was like this badge of honor, a symbol that you had truly arrived, right? You were a somebody. These days, you had 100,000 subscribers, check a few boxes, boom, verified.
So it's lost a little bit of its, I don't know, mystique.
Precisely. Democratized, sure, but it makes you wonder about the trade-offs. Did 90 Rich dodge a bullet by stepping back,
Yeah.
choosing a life less, I guess, curated? Or did they miss out on, riding that wave of early YouTube success? The question a lot of creators still grapple with today.
It's that age-old dilemma, go big or go home versus slow and steady wins the race, right? Speaking of real-life choices and finding your tribe, let's fast forward a little bit to what we've pieced together about 90 Rich's life beyond the screen. Our sources paint this picture, right, of Friday nights at the pub, like real-life meetups with friends, reminiscing about the good old days of RuneScape, and questionable YouTube trends we've thankfully moved on from.
Right.
And here's a detail I absolutely love.
No,
Okay?
right.
90 Rich is apparently like deeply, passionately devoted to a very specific cider
Oh,
called Rapscallion. Really?
Rapscallion cider.
Huh.
It's their drink.
I love that. It's fantastic, isn't it? Because on the surface, right, it's just a drink preference. But but it speaks to this like universal need for I don't know, belonging. It's not about the cider itself, right? It's about
Yeah.
the shared ritual, the camaraderie, the inside jokes that just kind of blossom around something as simple as a beverage.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine like being the new person in that group.
Right.
You're not ordering Repstallion.
Right. Good luck.
Good luck being included in the next, raid or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, speaking of gatekeeping, there's this hilarious anecdote where some poor guy, Dean, orders a bee sting cider instead.
Uh-oh.
And the group's reaction, let's just say Dean learned that day that cider choice is serious business in this crew. It's true, though. I mean, it's a lighthearted detail, but it does illustrate the dynamics of online communities, too, right? Every group, whether it's bound by pixels or pints, it has its, norms, its in-jokes, its unwritten rules.
Yeah, you order the bee sting of online opinions,
Oh,
you might get stung back.
you just might.
Too true.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We've gone from like grinding for gold in RuneScape to navigating the social complexities of cider selection in, your local pub. It really shows the full arc of 90 Rich's journey,
Yeah.
right? From like digital entrepreneur to YouTube, I don't know, dabbler to cider enthusiast.
It really does. And the most compelling part for me is we've really only just scratched the surface. What does 90 Rich, what do they make of today's gaming scene, right? I mean, with the Twitch streams and the esports, and what about this whole metaverse concept? Would they jump back in knowing what they know now?
Right. Would they trade their Friday night pint for a VR headset and like a virtual pint? It really makes you wonder.
It does, and it also makes you think how many other 90 Riches are out there, right? People who lived through these early days of the internet, made their mark, and then just chose a different path. Their stories, I think, they're fascinating windows into how online life has evolved and where it might be going next.
Yeah, it's like a whole generation that kind of existed in these digital shadows, and they're leaving these like cryptic breadcrumbs for, I don't know, internet archaeologists like us to try and decipher. So if you're out there 90 Rich, sipping your rapscallion, reminiscing about the good old days of RuneScape, just know this, your story. It's more relevant than ever.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, it's a little reminder to us all that sometimes the most fulfilling adventures are the ones that, we choose to create offline.
Hear, hear. To real life connections, right? And maybe the occasional virtual toast.
Cheers to that. This has been a wild ride. Until next time, keep exploring those digital mysteries, folks.
Yeah.
Who knows what fascinating stories are waiting to be unearthed?